begin.
Hey everybody, we are the Peace River 1 group and we'll be presenting on the confluence of Treaty 8 and the downstream effects of the Peace River. I'm Elya.
I'm Isaiah.
Joe.
I'm Mikaela.
All right, so we'll start with a broad overview of the watershed. So the Peace River watershed is found within British Columbia and Alberta, and it occupies an area of approximately 182,000 kilometers squared. The headwaters of the Peace River are found in the mountains of northern interior BC. Here, the Finlay and Parsnip rivers join and fill Williston Lake, which is pictured in the background here, a reservoir created by the WAC Bennett Hydroelectric Dam. This reservoir serves as the headwater of the Peace River, and mountain glaciers serve as the primary source. The terminus is the Peace Athabasca Delta, which is pictured here, which is the largest freshwater inland river delta in North America. In terms of land cover, the Peace River watershed is largely characterized by boreal forests of jack pine and black spruce, as well as wetlands. The foothill regions largely contain lodgepole pine. Other land types include aspen forest and grassland. The Peace River Valley also supports agricultural land, and it is the northernmost viable agricultural land in North America. Pictured here is an example of the boreal wetlands, as well as the agricultural lands found within the watershed. The geology of the Peace River watershed is complex, but it's mainly underlain by upper and lower Cretaceous bedrock, which is then overlain by quaternary sediments deposited by advancements of the Cordilleran and Laurentide ice sheets. On a smaller scale, the Wapiti Formation provides plenty of bedrock groundwater and provides water that ranges from fresh to slightly brackish. Deeper formations, such as the Bay Tree conglomerate, contain this higher dissolved mineral content, which requires more treatment. Pictured here, you can see some of those quaternary sediments that have been exposed on the bank of the river. The Peace River has several tributaries, among them the Smoky River, the Heart River, and the Wabasca River, all pictured here. The ultimate source for the waters of the Peace River are the alpine glaciers and the snow located in northern interior BC. Pictured here is Deserters Peak, one of the mountains whose snowmelt provides water for the river next to Williston Lake. This water is then controlled via reservoir release by the WAC Bennett Dam. Peak flow occurs between late May and early June. Mean annual discharge varies across the watershed, with mean annual discharge measuring 1,100 meters cubed per second at Hudson's Hope and 2,100 meters cubed per second, 1,100 kilometers downstream. The introduction of the WAC Bennett Dam has led to a change in annual flow. Increased flow is noted during winter, early spring, and fall, while decreased flow is noted during the summer months, especially during the months of May, June, and July. These changes are noted in the chart shown here. While peak snow accumulation occurs in April, most of the precipitation occurs as rain in the summer months. Precipitation varies across the watershed as it spans many climate regimes. Precipitation varies from 350 millimeters annually to an excess of 600 millimeters. Within the watershed, potential evapotranspiration and actual evapotranspiration sit at the low range of the provincial average. In millimeters per year, evapotranspiration varies from around 575 millimeters at the low end to 646 millimeters at the high end. Flooding typically occurs due to ice jams and high river flows caused by heavy rain or rapid snowmelt. Dam regulation has lowered open water flooding during the summer months, and flooding due to ice jams has been drastically reduced since the introduction of dams along the Peace River as well, which jeopardizes the recharge of perched basins and wetlands in the Peace Athabasca Delta. Pictured here is an ice jam along the Peace River. While water quality in the larger rivers is broadly considered good, contaminants have been found in smaller streams and rivers. Streams passing through agricultural lands are particularly impacted. Phosphorus levels are higher downstream of anthropogenic disturbances. In addition, Indigenous observations of declining water quality are sometimes at odds with what Western science claims. Pictured here is the Peace River pulp mill, which has been responsible for river pollution in the past. The Peace Athabasca Delta is at the terminus of the river and is a unique ecological location featuring grassland, marshes, lakes, and boreal forest. The Delta has been important to Indigenous peoples for thousands of years. It also serves as an important stopping point and breeding ground for migratory birds, like these endangered whooping cranes seen here. Arctic grayling, bull trout, and wood bison are among the species at risk that live in the Peace Athabasca Delta.
The Greater Peace is quite an expansive watershed, including settlements from indigenous nations across Treaty 8. There are several Métis settlements, Woodland Cree, Deneza, and Sekani nations, and peoples who've called this watershed home for time immemorial. Because names are so regionally specific, we've only included names for the Peace River itself. The Peace River is named Inchaga, meaning Big River in Deneza. For some of the Métis settlements in the area, they use the name Rivière de la Paix in French. The Cree name for the Peace River town site is Saketawak, meaning mouth of the river, and the name for the Peace River in Sekani is Tsiteeka, which means the river that runs by the rocks. According to Deneza oral history, the Peace River earned its name from the resolution of a conflict between the Deneza and the Cree. The Cree, residing traditionally south and east of the Upper Peace River region, possessed firearms due to their trade with settlers. This pushed the Deneza northwest in the late 18th century. A peace treaty negotiated in the late 1700s or early 1800s designated that the Cree would live south of the Peace River, while the Deneza would reside north. The Peace River, both before and after its renaming, served as a boundary zone where different groups met for trade, celebrations, and dispute resolution. Traditional land use throughout the watershed is conducted on reserve, crown, provincial, and federal park lands. Interactions with waterways by nation members notably include river travel, fishing, and hunting. River travel occurs on both unfrozen and frozen conditions, allowing for visiting, fishing, and camping up and down the river. The river valley is abundant in berries and medicines and is a stronghold of valuable habitat for moose and deer. Furthermore, many people hold a significant spiritual connection to the river, involving it in their ceremonies and creating continuity and ancestral connection through place-based understanding and sacred sites. Ultimately, the Deneza believe that a healthy river and river valley system is vital to the success of their people and for future generations. Historically, the Peace River was also a significant travel route during the fur trade and was even more essential to the lives and livelihoods of those living on and near it.
So the Peace River watershed has been greatly affected by many industries. Although industry provides opportunity for job creation and economic prosperity, the impacts caused by resource development have ultimately compromised ecosystem stability through the watershed. The uses and water allocations for these regions vary, but the most significant pressure and impact on the watershed has been from the WAC Bennett Dam. The WAC Bennett Dam, one of the world's largest earth-filled dams, was built in 1960. Its creation formed Williston Lake, the largest freshwater reservoir in British Columbia, and the facility now supplies roughly one-third of the province's power and brings an influx of tourism. Construction initially supported about 4,500 workers. However, today's numbers are not disclosed. The project caused significant and long-lasting impacts on Indigenous communities whose lands, livelihoods, and ecosystems were disrupted. The Site C project launched in July 2015 with a capital cost of approximately $16 billion, is projected to add $3.2 billion to the provincial GDP. During construction, the project generated close to 13,000 construction jobs. However, today the project employs less than 10% of that number. And BC Hydro stresses their need for long-term electricity and highlights the economic contributions provided to the province via dam construction. Although the project reports the construction of two upstream fish passage facilities and the implementation of extensive fish monitoring programs, BC Hydro fails to consider the long-term impacts to the watershed downstream and across jurisdictions. So the construction of the Bennett Dam brought significant environmental and social consequences. In the areas closest to the dam and its reservoir, the main issues became an excess of water. The Williston River arises from sections of the Finley, Parsnip, and Peace River, and it stretches roughly 250 kilometers from north to south and about 100 kilometers from east to west. Creating this reservoir eliminated large areas of habitat, altered local climatic conditions, and reduced biodiversity. Approximately 350,000 acres of forests were flooded, killing countless animals and cutting off the east-west migration route of mountain caribou through the Rocky Mountain Trench, an interruption that potentially contributed to the species' endangered status. So past management decisions have caused lasting socio-ecological harms for Indigenous communities, especially with the build of the Bennett Dam. Increases in agriculture, forestry, as well as oil and gas have resulted in compounding effects over time. Local and traditional knowledge highlight the changes to air and water quality, quantity, fish, and wildlife, and their associated habitats, ultimately impacting Indigenous quality and way of life. Over the past 50 years in the Peace River watershed, communities have observed a wide range of environmental changes across water, fisheries, wildlife, and air. Water quality concerns have included increasingly silty or muddy water, changes in coloration, strong odors, algal blooms, and tea scum, often linked to the expanding oil sands development, forestry, agriculture, and the broader effects of climate change. Fisheries have shown changes in size and weight ratios, population levels, fat stores, parasite presence, species diversity, and flesh color, reflecting pressures from contamination, farming, and habitat loss associated with industrial activity. Aquatic life, particularly ducks, geese, muskrats, and beavers, have also been affected. With declining water levels, altered flooding patterns, muskrat die-offs, and changes in beaver health connected to hydroelectric projects, oil sands operations, climate change, and habitat degradation. Air quality concerns frequently identified through dust and strong industrial odors have been attributed largely to reservoir drawdown and oil and gas activity, respectively. Together, these long-term historical observations illustrate how cumulative industrial development and environmental change have shaped the ecological health of the Peace River watershed.
Climate change. How does it affect the Peace River watershed? In the Peace Athabasca Delta region, Indigenous communities have noticed changes in the color of the snow. There have also been noted decreases in annual winter precipitation, which can be observed in the table on the slide. Lower lake levels have also been reported by Indigenous communities, and it has become apparent that Indigenous knowledge has clashed with Western science on how climate change may be impacting the watershed. Stakeholders of the watershed. There are several stakeholders of the Peace River watershed, including the Mighty Peace Watershed Alliance, both the British Columbia and Alberta provincial governments, the Canadian federal government, Treaty 8 First Nations, and non-governmental organizations such as Ducks Unlimited. As mentioned, Treaty 8 First Nations have a strong connection to the watershed. It is vital for practicing their traditional ways of life, and they have a strong interest in preserving the health of the watershed for future generations. The government as its stakeholders. The provincial governments need to both be involved as the watershed runs through both Alberta and British Columbia, although ultimately depending on the side, decisions are made differently. The government has actual decision-making power over the watershed. Alberta has recently proposed Bill 7, the Water Amendment Act, which, if passed, will lead to changes in the management of the watershed, although they say they will keep the same goals in keeping the watershed healthy and sustainable. Mighty Peace Watershed Alliance is a group of stakeholders formed under the Government of Alberta's Water for Life strategy. They have representatives from many different sectors, including different industries and different Treaty 8 First Nations that live along the watershed. They also take part in creating an integrated watershed management plan for the Peace River that is dedicated to planning for a healthy, sustainable watershed through multiple ongoing projects. Conflict resolution among stakeholders. BC Hydro has the Fish and Wildlife Compensation Program, which is meant to help compensate for the impacts on fish and wildlife and their habitats, which may have been affected by BC Hydro, such as affected by the Site C Dam. While the government has a duty to consult First Nations, it has been criticized for the way of handling projects such as the Site C Dam as it violates Treaty 8. Many culturally significant areas have been impacted due to flooding. While they are to be consulted, they do not have much real authority in many decision-making processes for the watershed they call their home. They're deeply impacted due to all of the decisions that are made for the watershed. They deserve to be included. The Mighty Peace Watershed Alliance has multiple ongoing projects that involve targeting several different issues, including tackling invasive species contamination from farming and restoring native species to the watershed area. For the future of the watershed, that is something that is hard to determine as new dams are still being built and lasting impacts are still being calculated.
Thank you for listening to our
Thank you
presentation.
for
We
listening to our presentation.
hope you have a good day.